Good morning. Today's recording comes from Algebra 1, Chapter 2, Lesson 2, and the quote comes from Horseradish by Lemony Snicket, Better Truths You Can't Avoid, page 27. Siblings who claim to get along all the time are most definitely hiding something. All right, on to math. Multi-step equations. You got to remember from the last lesson that you deal with lower priority operations first, and then you deal with higher priority. Lower priority are addition and subtraction. Low priority are addition and subtraction. High priority is multiplication and division and fraction bars and a few other things. Okay, but now we're going to throw in something into the mix called combining like terms and distributive property. And you got to do those things before you start dealing with that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do for this problem is we're going to add the opposite, because that's the first thing we do ever, is turn a subtraction problem into an addition problem. And originally, the problem was z equals 4m minus 2m plus 1m. So if I add the opposite, it looks like that. And we need to combine like terms. Since the m's are the same, let's say I have 4 monkeys plus negative 2 monkeys, I have 4 monkeys minus 2 monkeys, it's going to end up being 7 is equal to 2m plus 1. And you know, it could be like 2 monsoons or whatever you want M to stand for. Now that I've simplified as much of this as I can now deal with that lower and higher priority. So let's deal with the low priority stuff first, which means adding and subtracting. Well, what is the opposite of add 1? Well, that would be subtract 1. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And these are the properties of equality that we also talked about in the last lesson. 1 minus 1 is 0, so that cancels out. 7 minus 1 is 6, equals 2m. Well, what's the opposite of multiplying by m? Dividing by 2, or dividing by 2. So the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. Sorry, but what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. The 2's are going to cancel out, and it's going to leave me 3 equals m. And again, you can always go back and double check your answer using the original problem. So if I've got 7 equals 4 times 3, because m is 3, plus negative 2 times 3 plus 1. Well, order of operations, 4 times 3 is 12, plus negative 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1. 12 plus 6 is, negative 6. 12 minus 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 7 equals 7. That's a true statement, which means this works. All right, more example problem for you. Okay, so again, remember, you have to deal with distribution and combining like terms before you can do any of the higher and lower priority stuff. But even before that happens, you got to remember to add the opposite. So I'm going to go through and add the opposite, and then I'm going to distribute. Negative 2 times d is negative 2d, plus negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, equals 12. I need to minus 8 on both sides, minus 8 on both sides, because the opposite of bad 8 is minus 8. Yeah. Negative 2d is equal to 4, divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, d equals negative 2. And again, you can always throw it back into the equation to double check. But you can take my word for it, it's right. All right, next problem. We need to distribute. We need to add the opposite first. Add the opposite. Now we can distribute the negative 3. So we're going to end up with 15 equals negative 3x, because negative 3 times x is negative 3x, plus negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, plus 9. So the first thing I need to do is, after distribution, is to combine like terms. 3 plus 9 is 12. So 15 equals negative 3x plus 12. Now I can start dealing with my low priority. My low priority is addition and subtraction, so I'm going to minus 12 on both sides. And it gives me 3 equals negative 3x. High priority would be multiplication division, so I'm going to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, x equals negative 1. Alrighty, next we have clearing fractions. Clearing fractions is a pain in the patootie. I'm sorry you're going to have to do it. You got to learn it, so I'll try to go slow. Okay, there is two methods for clearing fractions though. The first one is kind of the obvious, which is just adding or subtracting fractions. So we can say and subtracting, right, and subtracting. And that just means coming up with a common denominator. So common denominator, okay? So the common denominator on the left side is, for 4, 2, and 8, is 8. So what do I need to do to 4 to get 8? Well, I need to multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply the m over 4 by 2 over 2, because 2 over 2 is 1. So really I'm like multiplying by 1, but it's a fancy way of 1. What do I need to do to 2 to get 8? Well, I need to multiply by 4 over 4, and that's m over 2. And what do I need to do to 8 to get 8? Nothing, so it can stay the same. All right? So now that I've done that multiplication, I need to multiply fractions. And you can simplify, well, no, don't simplify before you multiply, because you do want the common denominator. So 2 times m is 2m over 8 plus 4 times m over 8 equals 5/8. Well, now that you have a common denominator, you can just add. 2m plus 4m is 6m over 8 is equal to 5/8. Okay? So after that, you can actually start either multiply by the reciprocal, or you can multiply by 8 and then divide by 6. Both ways are going to get you the same answer, but I'm going to show you the easy way. What is the opposite of, how do you divide to do the opposite of 6/8? Well, that's going to be 8/6. So multiplying by 8/6 on both sides is going to clear this out. 6 goes into itself once, 6 goes into itself once, 8 goes into itself once, and 8 goes into itself once, which leaves me just m. But now I got to multiply the other side. Well, the 8's are going to cancel out before I even multiply, and m is going to equal 5/6. Okay, remember that, because the answer to clearing fractions right here should be exactly the same. And the easiest way to do this is to multiply by the least common multiple, which of 2, 4, and 8, which is 4. Okay? So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 4. And since I've got a ton of fractions, it's really like multiplying by 4 over 1. Okay? So we're going to have 4 over 1 times m over 4 plus 4 over 1 times m over 2 equals 4 over 1 times 5 over 8. And now we can simplify before we multiply, because basically everything's going to clear itself out. 4 over 4 cancels out, leaving me just m. This leaves me with 2m. And this is going to leave me with 4 goes into itself once, goes into 8 twice, 5 over 2. Okay? Well, there's an invisible 1 here, which is going to give me 3m is equal to 5 over 2. I'm going to divide by 3, divide by 3. But how do I divide a fraction? Well, I multiply by the reciprocal. So if I'm really dividing by 3 over 1, if I'm going to convert this, that cancels out, by the way, leaving me just m. Just so you know, we've got m equals, it's going to be 5 over 2 divided by 3 over 1. But how I divide a fraction is to multiply by the reciprocal. There we go. So now if I do some multiplication, I've got 5 times 1, which is 5, 2 times 3, which is 6, m equals 5 over 6. So there we go, guys. Exact same answer. You just need to pick which way works for you. Adding fractions might work for you. Clearing fractions might work for you. You need to pick the method that works for you and that you can do well. All right, the last thing I need to talk about is clearing decimals. So, sorry this video is a little long. It's got some hardcore stuff in it. You guys just got to go with it, all right? Clearing decimals. If you hate decimals, especially if you can't use a calculator, I highly recommend clearing them. To clear them means to multiply by the power of 10 that is represented by the longest place value. So since all of these decimals only go to the 10th place value, I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 10. And when I multiply things by a power of 10, I move the decimal to the right the number of zeros I have. So since I have 1 0, I'm only going to move the place value over once. Okay? So I'm going to end up with 12x minus 36 plus 3x equals 24. Isn't this so much prettier than having to deal with those stinking little nasty decimals? Well, I think so. So now that I've cleared all the decimals, I'm going to add the opposite. And since I can add the opposite and I've now got a bunch of addition signs, I can rearrange so that my common terms are all by each other. And so I'm going to move the 3x by the 12x. I've still got a plus 36, negative 36x equals 24. So combine like terms, it's going to give me 15x plus negative 36 equals 24. And now, how do I get rid of a negative 36? Well, I'm going to add 36, and I'm going to get 15x equals, add that up, equals 60, divide by 15, x equals 6. All right, guys, that is it. And again, you can go ahead and check it if you want to. But make sure you know how to clear decimals and clear fractions however you need to do it. All right, bye, guys.